In this video in our matrix series, we're looking at some basic operations, the add, subtract and scalar multiplying. Remembering that matrices represent an array of numbers, or a table of numbers if you like. So what might we want to do to the numbers in those tables? We might want to add them together, subtract, or multiply them by a number. And doing that by hand will become very tedious for large sets of numbers. So using matrices can make that much quicker. The idea of dividing matrices, it can be done. It's actually a version of multiplication, but we're not going to go through that in this Year 11 general course. So to add or subtract matrices by hand, a couple of rules have to happen. They must be the same size, which means the same order. And then you add or subtract the corresponding elements and get your solution. So just as a refresher, what would be the order of this matrix A here? Also the same for B. If you've seen the previous video, we do rows first, then columns. Just like you read a book, you read across and then you read down. So reading across, we have how many rows here? 3 rows. How many columns? 2. So the orders are the same. That means we're allowed to add or subtract. And you add or subtract the corresponding elements. So that means 2 is in that first position, if you like, the top left, or row 1, column 1. And you add that to row 1, column 1. And so the corresponding elements, that's what we mean there. Now using your graphics calculators, please have this handy and do it along with me. Don't just look at the instructions. So having your calculator here, using a Casio, so we're in menu 1, the run menu. You've possibly been using that for many months, years, and you may notice now it's called the run or matrix menu. So all of a sudden we're going to use some of the other features within there. You might want to clear what's already on your screen. And then pushing the F3 button, as you've noticed here, it's got the word mat underneath it. That stands for matrices. So we're working into that. Depending if other people have used your calculator or not, you may have things on your screen there for the other matrices. You can delete them if you like, or if you just start typing over the top, then it essentially will delete the matrix there. So moving the arrow key up and down till you get matrix A, it's probably on there to start with, and hit execute or enter. It will then ask you to put the order in. On my one, I happen to already have a matrix already in there, and it took me straight to the matrix. So it actually will be best for us to delete the matrices that are already there. So delete one at a time for F1, or delete all for F2 as your option there. And then using the execute button, type over the top of matrix A, and it's going to ask you to put in the order. So notice M by N. It doesn't say R and C, row and column. It's got M for the rows. M for Matthew, so we're typing in 3, and then N for Nellie, 2 for the columns, hitting enter again, and then it will take you to a blank version in matrix A full of zeros. Now I'd like you to type these in, and as the instructions say here, enter the values, and you push execute, enter after each entry, and then we're going to push execute twice at the end. So typing in 2, enter 4, so you type across the rows. That's the way it wants you to input them. Of course, you can arrow if you've made an error on any of them and get back to it and just type over the top, and then hit the exit at the end. Maybe I said execute a minute there because we need to come back to the main screen. So exit once to the list of matrices and then exit one more time back to the run mode there. Aha! But actually we need to put in matrix B. So entering that back in, you need to go back into the matrix menu, F3 if you're not already there, type in the order, a 3 by 2, and then type in these digits 1, 2, 5, 1, 4, 8, going across the rows. It will do that for you, and then down the columns. And then we want to work with these matrices. So we need to tell our calculator that we want to recall those stored matrices. And so how do we do that? And as you can see here, we want to get this on the screen. We want the calculator to call up matrix A. It just uses the word mat. How do we do it? How do we get to type in that word mat? As you can see here, the yellow shift button underneath F1. And then you're pushing the number 2. And if you look down at the number 2 on your calculator, written in yellow or orange, you'll see the word mat written there. And so that's asking it to use that function. And how do we get it to do an A? Well, that's an alpha A. So we need to push the red alpha button underneath the shift, and this time find the letter A, which is on the button that's the X theta T button, just underneath the alpha again, and then that's calling up matrix A. Now, what do we want to do? This time around we want to add, so put a plus sign just like normal. And now you want to, using the calculator, to call up matrix B. So how to get the mat? That is the shift number 2 to get mat, and then alpha to get the letter B, which is next to the letter A, which is the button that's called log. So typing that in and hitting enter, and that should give you the numbers that are here on the screen. No, it doesn't give me the numbers that appear on this screen here. We've made a mistake. Blaming Mr. McKie here for the slides that he's prepared. So the numbers I've got on my screen are 3, 6. So yes, the first row is correct. Then I've got, I should write that, 8, 2, and then 4, 13. Hopefully you've got that too. This is a really good way of checking. If there's any questions there, ask your teacher specifically to see if you can find any little errors in maybe the input code there. And hopefully we all end up with the same answer at the end. We're humans, we make mistakes, apologies for that. And a note here that matrices can only be added or subtracted if they have the same order or size. So obviously we're adding corresponding elements in each row and each column. And so if they're not of the same order, we couldn't add and the same corresponding numbers because they'd all be in different positions, if that makes sense. Now, scalar multiplying. You may or may not have come across this word scalar before. It's basically, it's a number. So you're multiplying a matrix by a number, for example, the number 3. In this video, we're not multiplying matrices by another matrix, we're just multiplying them by a number. So using your graphics calculators, you might want to clear that run screen or just type over the top. Here's what we want to do. We want to do 3 times matrix A. So type in the number 3 first, and then putting a multiply sign in between the two of them, and then calling up matrix A. So shift number 2 for the mat, and then alpha A to get the A, and hit enter, and you should get this matrix on your screen there. I've got that too. There's some questions to do now. Do take note or check in with your own teacher which ones are by hand and which ones are using the graphics calculator. It's really important to practice adding the elements by hand, but then also knowing how to use your calculator. I hope that helps. Thanks for joining me.